we just seen probably one of the worst massacres in modern human history. Al Shifa Hospital, you have hundreds of people brutally murdered. This is after the ICJ ordered them to cease their genocide, to allow aid in. Now, there was a lot of interpretation over the original ICJ ruling. I took the more negative approach than everyone else did. Because I was, more than anything else, I was thinking about saving lives, you know what I mean? So when I was thinking like, all right, how could this actually benefit and save the people in Gaza? A lot of people think like, oh, this is groundbreaking. Our video after the ICJ ruling, I titled it, "The ICJ sells out the Palestinians, allow them to die," essentially. Because there's no way Israel, and feel free to push back on me if you want, because to me, even when they made the ruling, I knew they wasn't going to follow it. So to me, it seems like something to make people feel better. I don't know, Margaret, what's your take on this? I don't want to
Well,
keep
I
rambling.
think it was. I'm not going to disagree with you. I think it was important, first of all, for South Africa to charge Israel with
I agree with that.
genocide, for someone to step forward and to make that charge in the World Court. The International Court of Justice is the world's court. Um, they did not go as far. They did not use the word ceasefire, but also said you have to stop killing people. But there's no enforcement. You know, the U.S. Well, let's remember something that the U.S. did the day that the ICJ ruling came down, and they said that the charge of genocide was plausible. What does the United States do? It says that the UN Relief Agency has members of Hamas in it to try to blunt this really groundbreaking decision on the part of the ICJ, getting their friends to do the same, getting Canada and EU countries to cut off aid to the UNRWA, UNRWA, the Relief Agency for Palestine, which, by the way, is in and of itself a war crime. Uh, Collective punishment is a war crime. The Fourth Geneva Convention's Article 33, you can look it up. Um, you cannot punish someone because of something someone else did. You can't do that.
And they
So,
admit it all the time. Whenever I talk about
right,
this, you get Israeli trolls are like, well, Hamas never did it. You just admitting that the fact that you're doing collective punishment when you guys say that. Every single
exactly.
time someone says, well, why don't you condemn Hamas? Well, Hamas started that. You guys, whenever you say that, you admitting to a war crime.
Yes,
Go
exactly.
ahead.
Absolutely. So,
Well, I got my charge. I'll be right back. Sorry, I'll be right back, guys. Hold up.
okay, depriving UNRWA of aid is in and of itself a war crime. So Israel's committing a war crime. The U.S. and its allies are committing a war crime. So that tells you the importance of this ICJ ruling. They had this in their back pocket that they told Israel, don't worry about it. Whatever they say, we're going to repeat your lie about Hamas infiltrating UNRWA, and so we will take the this decision, which said genocide was plausible. We'll take that off the front pages, and we'll put Israel's lies about Hamas, make that the news story. I never believed it. I never believed it from day one.
Me
Then
neither.
it turns out these alleged confessions were beaten out of people. So
Mm.
and every phony charge, the mass rape, uh, UNRWA being under the control of Hamas, all of these things are lies meant to cover up for U.S. and Israeli war crime.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I should say that my disappointment was in the lack of the international possible response to a genocide. So you're 100% right because the ICJ and charging Israel with genocide is important. Don't get me wrong, it is important, but it doesn't help the Palestinians and Gaza. You
No,
know
it
what I
doesn't.
mean? So there's a disappointment on my end that there's no mechanism in the international community to save the Palestinian lives. You know what I mean? That I think that's probably the more accurate way to put it. Because
Yeah,
now think about it, even if the ICJ said you should have a ceasefire, they still want to follow it anyway. You know what I mean? So my overall disappointment is the lack of mechanism the international community had to prevent this. I think that's probably the best way to
well,
say it.
this shows you how
Yeah,
powerful the U.S. still is,
yeah.
even in its weakened state. That's the U.S. that keeps that enforcement from taking place. If the U.S. said yes, you can enforce it, it would be enforced. But despite all the, the good cop, bad cop routines, oh, we're mad at Netanyahu. He doesn't do what he says. It's all nonsense. It's all nonsense meant to shut people up. They think they have a little PR problem, but they don't. People are outraged about genocide, and there's nothing about these pretend attacks on Netanyahu that are going to. It's not going to fool people.
Let me read this from
Yeah,
CNN.
that's what I wanted to say. About the ICJ and whatnot. It's like, how can you move around these psychopaths without starting World War III? I think that is the whole thing. They are trying to find a way to move around these psychopaths because they know that's they see what Israel is doing. Gaza isn't the only place that they are bombing right now. They are bombing multiple countries without any justification right now. So I think they are trying to find a way to not start World War III because they know that these psychopaths will go all out. And I think, I don't know, like Margaret Kimberley said, this shows the power that the U.S. still has. Because if the whole world get together and they agree on one thing and one person raise their hand and that's the end of it, then shit, we got some work to do.
Well,
Got
you're
some
right.
explaining to do.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The Israel has the biggest bully on its side. Um, the U.S., was forced into they abstained in this last. They didn't veto, and that's another problem with the UN, that these 5 countries have this veto power in perpetuity. The U.S. and France and Britain generally working together, Russia and China working together, but that the U.S. kept vetoing these ceasefire resolutions. And finally, they felt enough pressure, and I think domestic political pressure played a role. This abandoned Biden movement, people saying they weren't going to vote for genocide, I think that scared them enough that they said they would abstain, of course, but then, being who they are, they immediately tried to lie and say, well, the resolution's non-binding, which is a lie. There are no non-binding UN resolutions. Of
Right.
course it was binding.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of thing they do in their
This
desperation.
this article, the reason I'm putting it out of line because I was actually going to cover Haiti before this, but since we're already talking about Israel, this was the next thing I was going to ask you about. You wrote this article where you're kind of talking about what we're discussing now, but I do want to scroll down here to what you say towards the end. I think here it goes right here. This ceasefire resolution came about only because the people demanded it. Any credit given must go to the unnamed people who have made their outrage clear, who have acted upon it. The pressure must be sustained. If it's not, Biden and his partners in crime in the Congress and in the corporate media will behave as if though all is well. They want to believe they have a marketing problem. That's what they always say, messaging, that can be resolved with enough focus groups, wordsmithing instead of a political movement that cannot be stopped. And to the point of this little section of this one of this latest articles that you made, this is what we see in corporate media all the time. There's never a shift in policy. They never say, oh, your polls are doing bad because people don't agree with you on the war. So what is the solution? You need a new messaging strategy. It's never you need a new policy. It's you need a new a messaging strategy. And you were seeing that sort of play out with the abstaining from vetoing the resolution that was part of this whole thing to shift this thing with this fundraiser with Obama and Biden. I would love to hear your reaction to that, along with sort of reiterating what you're saying in this article here. And also, what is your take on the fundraiser with Obama, Margaret?
Oh, I wrote it because I actually wondered if I should have changed the title later, because it is very minimal. The ceasefire was only for 2 weeks, as we've discussed, there's no enforcement behind it, but it was a victory nonetheless. But even that little bit of victory came about because people are protesting vociferously, and they won't go away, and they won't shut up, and people are saying they won't vote for Biden, and people are refusing. He sends out these little lackeys. They have some Muslim and Arab staffers, and people are like, nope, not meeting with them either. So it's that. It's the uh, members of Congress being called out wherever they are. The the current and last two Democratic presidents. Biden had a big fundraiser, and people everywhere. They cannot go anywhere without being questioned about Gaza. And Barack Obama, Mr. Thin Skin, was like, why don't you listen, or something stupid he said. Nobody
Something
cares.
The
to that
same
effect,
shit he
yeah.
always says. He said the same. He had the same script. Every time you get heckled.
Yeah, he
Well,
does.
come on,
He
man,
does.
You gotta listen to what you gotta listen, man. The other side does what you guys are doing. You gotta listen to us. You gotta listen. Said the guy who's not listening at all. He said
Exactly. Why don't you
every
listen?
time.
That's my response. Well, why don't you listen? But they are these ex-presidents are errand boys for the rest of their lives. Obama and Clinton, they're all over the world. Bill Clinton was in Guyana last week, stirring up trouble between Guyana and Venezuela. It's a longer story, but Obama was in London a couple of weeks ago. It's not clear what he was telling the British. It's surmised that he told them, it's okay for you to vote in favor of this next ceasefire resolution. We had this discussion, and that they felt he had to deliver the message in person. I thought was interesting. But at any rate, these are not, when I see them together, all I think of is all the people they got killed. Obama in Libya, Clinton in Yugoslavia, all of them bombing Somalia, Haiti, Iraq, all the places that Ukraine, all the people dead in Ukraine, the people in Gaza now, all of that. When I see them, that's all I think of. That's all I think of. And I don't care if they had a big party and Lizzo sang and whatever. And I don't care if Obama doesn't like being questioned. To hell with him. Who cares what he likes and doesn't like?
Right.
It's a sign of political maturity. And this is another thing. People are speaking up and talking back. And it's enough people, even though it's a minority, it's a critical mass of people who are saying that this is not acceptable, that they cannot support genocide, that all the vote shaming in the world won't get them to support Joe Biden again. Yeah, there they are.
I'm loving to hear that. Go ahead, Nick, or
That's a
whoever
lot of
was
people.
talking. I couldn't tell.
And
There's a
I'm
lot of
pretty
deaths.
sure most people on X can agree. It's always weird how your least effort tweets always are like the bangers. Like I could write a fucking dinner an essay about the history of imperialism, how it affects black people, like 100 likes, and I can simply say that these presidents are the 3 biggest psychopathic murderers in the world, and I get 35,000 likes just for simply saying that. Like you write essays on Twitter, nigga, no one care, and you just simply say "fuck these presidents," you get thousands of likes because everyone.
I think
knows
it's the simplicity.
what?
I think it's the simplicity, and you can't not attribute or give credit to your line hits emotionally, and that's where I think that 35,000 is coming.
You get to the point, and you get straight to the point. One of the things I noticed, and you can see my little comment too, is the fake smiles. Look at their fake laughter.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find yours. They reply on the tweet. I would love to see what you said on this one. Because
I was on the side. I was very cool. I just said all the dead people.
I'm gonna see if I can find it. But look how broken their brains are. I'll pass back to you, Mark. You see this?
Anyone else love this photo? And there are people who do love the photo, who love seeing them, who are, I always think it's funny that Trump supporters are always called cultists and people who don't think for themselves and they've just been propagandized. Well, that also applies to Democrats. They're any better.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else love this photo? That's wild. That's a wild thing to say about 3 to 1, the biggest murderers of all time.
Is it ratioed? I can't see the details. Is that ratioed?
And kind of, because they got 11,000 comments compared to 37,000 likes. Now, we all know this is a DNC account. Like, this is probably a DNC staffer that runs this. Really propped up with DNC bots. But there's still people that like this. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So out of 37,000 likes, maybe 80% of it is fake. And that's been shown in studies that like 80% of the DNC accounts are bots. But that's still 80%. Let's say 80% is fake. That's still 20% of 37,000 people. I'll say 20%
that's
that's
still a
real.
lot of people.
That's still a lot of fucking people, guys. Even if 10% of that is real, that's still a lot of fucking people to see a picture of presidents and praising it like they're fucking celebrities. Do you see the mind rot of our society to even see a picture like this and say, "Oh my God, look at this picture of these celebrities"? We love
Because
this?
it's not Trump. And that's what, if Trump didn't exist, they would have had to invent him.
Yeah.
This, that he's this loathsome, and he is a loathsome person, and he's a proto-fascist, and he's so terrible. Yes, he is. They're also terrible in their own way, but now, people will argue you down if you. It's funny to me. You don't even have to criticize them. You can just say, "I'm not crazy about Biden." People will just lose it. What do you want, Trump? I just said I'm not crazy. Some mild criticism is enough to set these folks off. But that's what they excel in now, and it's the Democrats who are as much fascist as the people on the January 6th people are extreme MAGA. Is it MAGA or MAGA? I have no idea. But if you that's their talking point now, extreme MAGA. Whatever BS they're trying to peddle.
MAGA Republicans. They say MAGA Republicans as if George Bush Republicans are somehow great.
What's the difference?
Whenever I hear the term, and progressives say it, like you hear like squad members and their support, they'll say MAGA Republicans separate as if the Reagan Republican who killed millions in the global south was better.
Yeah, they're doing the same thing with Netanyahu. They're saying Netanyahu's government. They're doing the same thing with Netanyahu as Bernie Sanders and a lot of these social democrats are jumping on. Okay, we can't critique the empire, so let's just act like this is all Netanyahu. That's what they're doing now. But look at this. This is just a quick headline. 37 mothers a day are killed. And this is the article. I'll read the first sentence. Over 9,000 Palestinian women have been killed since the start of Israeli war on the Gaza Strip. Mothers have been the largest share of Israeli killings at an average of 37 mothers per day since October 7th. That's what we're up against. And the Biden administration is pretending that they're not facilitating this. And one of the latest things, I'm curious to get your opinion on this, Margaret, is that how he keeps sending these weapon shipments during a genocide. Now the talking point is, well, there has been agreements before this that we just have to fulfill. What are we going to do? Jim Clyburn goes on State of the Union and says, like, what are we supposed to do? We got to fulfill our obligations. So Jim Clyburn is saying we will look like deadbeats if we stop funding a war because we said we would promise them all of these bombs. That's literally, Margaret, what they're trying to pass on to us as if we're idiots. Have you seen that, by the way? And if you hadn't, what is sort of your reaction to a
well,
like that?
It just shows you how amoral the Democratic Party is. You mentioned Clyburn's name. He's a person I cannot stand, like the rest of them. And we're
terrible.
told he's this. What's the term they always use for him? A kingmaker or something. He's just the Democratic Party lackey. But just to show you that they know most people want a ceasefire. There's a spectrum of opinion, and I can see there's something fuzzy. I don't know what's going on with my internet. Apologies. But I know that while there's a spectrum of opinion about Israel, most Americans want the killing to stop. That's what they want. And but we don't live in a democracy, so that's not what we're getting. So the Biden administration makes an end run around Congress. Apparently, there's a threshold that has to be reached in order to get congressional approval for weapon sales, and so they just make sure the weapon sale is underneath that threshold. And so they've given Israel millions of dollars and millions of dollars in weaponry to get around this, and they know it's because it's so unpopular. They know that. And as far as Clyburn or the rest of them, I don't care if the U.S. doesn't fulfill its obligations to kill people. I don't care, and neither do many other people. So so that's where we are now with the phony progressives, the phony Democrats. AOC finally said the word genocide. Clearly, they're given permission for that word to be used. Bernie Sanders, who, oh my God, he said, well, this is not the Israel of Golda Meir. This is a right-wing Israel. Israel was
What?
always right-wing. Golda Meir said there's no
I
such
saw
thing
that
as
quote.
Palestinians, and although nobody should be surprised, Bernie lived on a kibbutz. I always say that. He's
Yeah,
just a Zionist. He would like a nicer, kinder, gentler Zionism. That's just not what Zionism is. So, so that's where we are now with this recognition that this movement cannot be stopped so easily. But the last thing they want to do is end this domination that the U.S. is committed to continuing.
I want to interject this headline here because I wanted to read this. Experts, and I want to get your thoughts on this because we were talking about the Ukraine Russia thing. Experts warn UN courts approaching Ukraine versus Russia genocide cases may lead to more instability. No shit. Now and I reported on this before, and I'll pass it to Margaret for any other comments on this. There was some social democrats in Sweden and Norway that you can't call anything other than sweet summer children. These are people who heard the State Department line on Ukraine, and they really thought, and this is coming from their reporting, so I don't know how much they was actually bullshitting us when they say this, but they say when they heard the United States talk about human rights and stand up against war crimes in Ukraine, a lot of these morons actually believed them. And now there's reporting a lot of these people are being disillusioned by the United States because they're now realizing the hypocrisy of the Western rules-based order. So I want to ask you about the short-sightedness of Israel and the United States, because what they have done with their blatant hypocrisy on Ukraine versus the Gaza genocide delegitimize them to the point where even the morons, I'm talking about the people who support the Ukraine war, even they are questioning the United States now because of Gaza and Israel. So, Margaret, any other reactions that you have regarding the ICJ and the damage Israel has done to their credibility? And before I pass to Rome or CJ, any other questions that you guys have?
Yeah,
Margaret,
well, I would just say this. We did not talk about why Israel's doing what it's doing. There's
yeah.
several things at once. First of all, they just want to steal the land. These Israeli settlers have already said we're ready to move in. I mean, I don't know, and they say it openly. They're all on the record. All you have to do is a couple Google searches and
Yeah.
you'll see it. They want the land. They also want to create a new an alternative to the Suez Canal, and that means they have to clear the population. And I've said before, and I will repeat it: ethnic cleansing is the goal. It's not like all of these deaths are collateral damage. The goal is ethnic cleansing, to kill as many people as possible, to terrorize the survivors, to try to force other countries to take people in. When I hear people say, well, why can't they go to another country? My response is always, why do they have to leave their homes? Even this pier, they're going to build a pier to get humanitarian aid in. But I thought Israel was an ally. Why do you have to build a pier? But the pier is a Trojan horse. It's going to be used to force people to leave Gaza. And I think it's important for us to talk about why Israel is practicing this cruelty, what it is they want out of it.
Yeah, well said. CJ,
Oh.
I don't know if you have anything. I know you want to talk about Haiti. You mind if I read some super chats? Because I actually gotta get going soon.
No,
Is there anything else?
what I was gonna say is we're gonna have to bring Margaret back and do an in-depth Haiti, because I'm in the same situation as you, so we're gonna end it right here. And plus, this is actually the end of Margaret Kimberley. She has to get going too.
Yeah.
This is her hard out. So we can let Margaret Kimberley give her final words and leave, and we can get the super chats, Nick, if you like. Sure.
Yes,
So
thank you.
Margaret, again, we much appreciate you and Ajamu coming on, specifically on this date, the special day of our anniversary. We do see you two, along with a handful of other people, as just people who we would ideologically and strategically align ourselves with, and we wish people would recognize that instead of calling us Jimmy Doreites, call us Margaret Kimberleyites or whatever it would be. We would absolutely prefer that label